Hello, welcome back to French Ear Trumpet. I'm Andy from AJ in France, and also we have Colin from French Countryside Life. And yeah, this channel is proving quite popular, which we're both very happy about. In fact, the videos get more views than my main channel, which is good in some ways, but mildly depressing, for me. But no, it's a really popular channel, and have a look in the description. There's links to our main channels and some of the other videos we've done so far. So we've done things like YouTube, having a YouTube channel in France, Pests in France, that kind of thing. So today, what we're going to talk about today, Colin?
Well, I'm glad you said about last week's video, because I've got a comment here from Les Blakesman that I'd just like to address. And he asked how to register a UK car in France and what the process is. Now, I've not done it myself, but I know that you have, so enlighten us all.
Yeah, so I'm assuming Les means a car from the UK, because that's the only experience I've got.
Yeah.
It could be America, in which case I've got no idea, because I don't know about the local laws. So with the cars, yeah, I brought my Ford Ranger over, but that was pre-Brexit. But I also know what needs to be done after Brexit as well, and they're two separate things. Now, if the car was over before Brexit, you can still apply the same rules. If you get a nice person at the tax office, you can just stroll in there with a couple of forms and get what's called a quitus fiscal, which is a piece of paper that proves you paid the VAT in the originating EU country. At that time, that was the UK. So even if now it's in France, but it arrived here before Brexit, you can still use that method, which saves you an awful lot of hassle. And you don't have to pay any import duty or taxes or anything. You just fill in that form, and then they give you a quitus fiscal. You take that along with a current control technique, insurance, and then your residence permit and proof of ID and proof of address. They do like that. To a local garage, pay them €20, and you'll get a carte grise, which is the registration document. So that's super simple. After Brexit, it's a lot harder. So you actually have to contact the customs, the douanes.
I can never pronounce that word either.
No, me neither, obviously. And
all the vowels in one word, isn't it, Nero?
Yeah, that's right. And there are different rules on importing the car. So if you buy a new car in England, you can request that the seller doesn't charge you the VAT in England. So you don't pay the 20% in England, but you then have a small time limit in which you can bring the car over to France. And on entry to France, you then pay that VAT to France.
Is it the same rate?
Yes, currently. And you pay some fees and that sort of stuff. But once you paid the VAT to the customs, you can then carry on. Like we just mentioned, they'll give you a form to say that the tax has been paid, and then you can use the other documents as well and get your carte grise. If it's your car, you've had it for a while, and you're now moving to France within a year of you getting here, and you bring the car that you've owned for a period of time, there are different rules to if you just went to England, bought a car, and brought it over. So if it's your car, there's less tax to pay, or maybe none at all, if you've had it for a certain period of time and it's within that time frame that you moved to France. If you just go over there and buy a car because it's cheaper, then you'll have to pay the import tax, the VAT, and a percentage of the value of the car as well.
Yeah, so does that make it not financially viable to go back and buy
it depends on the car. Yeah, it would depend on the car. I mean, if the car is significantly cheaper, it might be possible. Viable. But the problem with that is you've then got a right-hand drive car in France.
There you go.
And when you come to sell them on, you can't get anything for them.
No.
In fact, I recently purchased an electric car, which there's a video coming up on my channel. Just want to plug that, by the way.
Link in the description.
Link in the description.
Thanks, Robbie.
And I actually asked the guy in the shop how much he would give me for my right-hand drive vehicle. I looked up in England, it would be roughly worth £4,000 to £4,500 if I was to sell it privately in the UK or to a, these we buy any car things.
Yeah.
He said he'd give me €1. So they really do not want right-hand drive because they can't do anything with it.
No.
They don't want right-hand drive. So you've got that further down the line if you do bring a car in.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that it's only viable if it came here before Brexit, or you're bringing it with the rest of your move, in which case you do get some discount. But if you're thinking of buying one and going over there, buying one and bringing it in, I wouldn't. Just buy in.
I mean, I had a Mercedes ML when we came out, and I took that back to the UK and sold it there, and we bought it's so much simpler just to buy a car here. Well, it's very expensive, but with the aggravation factor and all of that.
Oh.
Just thinking about the paperwork thing. The French do like a bit of paperwork. I remember someone asked me for my father's birthplace. I was filling in a form and I wanted my father's name and where he was born. I have no idea. Don't know where he was born.
Well,
yeah.
They do things an awful lot differently. Like birth certificate. Quite often you get asked for your birth certificate for financial things, like if you're buying a house or applying for your carte vitale, and it has to be recent. And I'd never understood why, because in the UK, your birth certificate is your birth certificate. You can get this lovely calligraphized, if that's a word, I'm not sure it is, but
yeah, that works. Yeah,
it's good, isn't it? If not, I've just made one up.
Let me write that down.
You could get a very pretty birth certificate. The original one, mine was handwritten. Yours was probably chiseled on a stone tablet or something, wasn't it? Anyway, but I had to send off for a brand new one. Get it translated, but they would only accept it from I think there was a 6 months time limit on it, so it had to be less than 6 months old. And I didn't know why, and then I spoke to I guess my sister-in-law, who was French, and she said, well, yeah, because in France it changes. There's information on it that does change as you get older, I guess. In England, it's just that's it. It's done one thing. So that might confuse a few people anyway. Yeah.
So there was another comment that from Dave J66 that he was saying about his pet passports, and that he did the same thing as I did. He got a pet passport for his two dogs from the French vet, which resolved his problems. But that got me to thinking, if you're a French resident, so you've got your carte de séjour and your residency, not so much a visitor's visa, but a French residency.
Yeah.
Does that exclude you from the 90-day travel in the Schengen area outside of France, if that makes sense? So what I mean is, if I went to Spain, for example, which is where you're speaking from.
That's right, yeah.
National Jet Setters Incorporated.
Yeah.
So if you went to Spain, for example, would you only be allowed to stay in Spain for 90 days?
Right, it's a good question. And the answer is the 90-day rule applies as soon as you leave France.
Right.
Now, it's tricky because borders are set up around the EU as opposed to between the countries inside the EU.
Of course, yeah.
So it becomes a little bit harder. And of course, when you're in the Schengen zone, you actually don't need a passport to fly. You just need an identity card. It's complicated because also there's a recent ruling, which I'll get to in a second. But the answer to your question is, unfortunately, yes, the 90-day rule does apply.
Excuse me. Sorry.
That's all right. Shouldn't put whiskey in your coffee because that's what happens.
Exactly. Thank you, Doctor.
So yeah, the 90-day rule, as soon as you leave France, if you're a French resident, starts to apply. Now, I do travel a lot. I mean, in 10 days, I've been on 4 planes. So something I do know quite a lot about. I recently went to Poland, Czech Republic, and now I'm in Spain, southern Spain. And you do get your passport stamped at both of those, all of those locations. If you travel by air, you should get your passport stamped. Now, if you travel by road,
I was just going to say actually that
yeah,
if I was to drive to Spain,
yeah,
I could virtually stay there indefinitely. Yeah, until someone checked, I suppose.
Oh, hello, back again.
Yeah.
Hello?
So did you understand?
Go on, say it again.
Yeah. So if I was to drive to Spain, I could virtually stay there indefinitely until someone checked.
Yes, that's correct. It's practically possible to just drive across the border, of course, into Spain and just stay there as long as you like. But
yeah,
everything's possible and nothing's a problem until it's a problem.
yeah, yeah.
If
Is
they
there an
find
actual physical border at the border with Spain and France? Is there an actual, physical border, or is it just a road?
It depends where you go. If it's on a route where there's lorries transiting, then yeah, there is actually usually a way station and a little hut, but it doesn't normally apply to normal people. It will be applying to foreign vehicles that are entering, usually heavy goods vehicles, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been through a few of these, specifically towards the southern part of France. I've been through a few on motorbikes, and you at the time, any European vehicle can just travel through. Sometimes they're manned, and sometimes they're not. So yeah, you could quite easily come over to Spain or I don't know, Switzerland or Germany or wherever, and yeah, you're in. But technically, it does apply. Now, the worst case scenario is you get one stamp but not the other. So what I mean by that is you get a stamp in, but you drive back and you don't get a stamp out.
Yeah, so you haven't left.
No way of knowing how long you stayed, and if then you say you go on holiday after that, the guy looks at your passport and says, "Hold on, you've actually been in Spain for 220 days, and in fact you only went for a week, but you didn't get a stamp out." So it's complicated, and some people have got to the end of the 90 days and transited through another EU country to get back to the UK and actually been stopped at the border and dealt with as an illegal overstayer.
Yeah.
But there's a recent ruling in the EU that if you're just transiting, then that doesn't apply. So they do know about that now. But anyway, so it's complicated. My advice is get a stamp in, the stamp out. If you're thinking of just overstaying, the penalties are harsh, and you might be banned from going to any Schengen country for 5 years or whatever. So,
yeah.
But it does apply.
Yeah.
What we're going to talk about this time?
Yeah, so we're just getting into the season now where people are going to be coming back to their holiday homes for the spring and summer season. Maybe we can talk about things that they would need to do to the house to check before they switch things on. It's still sometimes a little bit chilly at night, so maybe someone might come back to the house, put the heating on. Things to check. I remember then when we had the house up in Normandy, we came back after Christmas. I think it must have been about the end of February, March time. And I went and switched all the water back on, and turned the hot water back on, and I went and sat down on the sofa. I'd drip, 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 drip.
Oh
So
no.
I looked up, and there was water coming through the ceiling downstairs. So I ran back upstairs, and I could see it was coming from where the hot water tank was, but I couldn't see exactly where. So anyway, cut a long story short, it turned out to be a copper pipe that had been soldered, and it had obviously frozen in the over between Christmas and when we got there, and it had just pushed the pipe out. It just broke the solder, but it was a cold water pipe that fed the hot water tank, and it had, I think, 690 degrees to it, and to do it, I took all that out and just did it properly, and I managed to do it with three instead.
Much better.
Yeah, but yeah. So anyway, so as I say, coming back to the house. So what sort of things would people need to check before they start switching things on?
Yeah, good question. And I'll tell you, one of the most common things I find on Facebook is people with leaking safety valves underneath their new hot water tanks.
Right.
Do you remember? In fact, if you're watching this, we did a little mini series of videos on your channel and on mine, didn't we, of fitting a new hot water tank?
Yep.
And part of that is fitting a security or safety valve underneath the tank. So if it gets too much pressure or it gets too hot, it lets water out into a drain which runs away safely. But a lot of people come in, turn everything on, and that valve is leaking. And I see it an awful lot on the Facebook posts, and water is dripping out at varying different speeds. And it's a constant, the posts around this time of year. It's quite common. So before, I mean, this is what you would do, I guess, before you left the property, is to cycle that, turn the water off and cycle that valve, the red handle on it. You can turn it and it lets some water out. If you turn that a few times, it just reduces the buildup of limescale on it and make sure that it's working properly. And if you do that before you leave and lock up the property, then the chances of that leaking when you come to turn it on is very minor. But that's one area to check. So as soon as you have turned your water on, is go to your hot water tank, look underneath, and if there is a safety valve underneath, check that and make sure that it's not dripping. If it is dripping, it's dripping into something that goes to a waste rather than a bucket, because I've seen that a lot of times in France. So that plumbing wise, that is definitely something I would check first off. And also,
sorry, while you're there, I was speaking to Graham earlier from our French renovation. Link in the description.
Yeah.
He's just fitted a hot water tank in his kitchen. Well, sorry, he's just placed it in his kitchen, and he was asking about the expansion tank. Does he really need one? And because he said, 2 or 3 people that he knows haven't got one. So just explain to me again the reason for having the expansion tank.
Yep, good question. And actually, my current water heater at my house does not have an expansion tank. What it does have is a broken seal around the bottom, which is leaking into a mop bucket at the moment. And the reason it's leaking into a mop bucket is because I don't have an expansion tank. So if you can imagine, you have 200 litres of water and you heat that up from room temperature overnight because you're all asleep, no one's using the water, the pressure starts at 3 bar, but when you heat it up, it expands. So where is it going to go? There's nowhere for it to go. Now, if you've got a big enough house, and I mean a really big house, it's possible that it could be absorbed somewhere in the system and it'll even out if you've got long lengths of pipe or something like that. If not, then that pressure just accumulates in the system and you may see up to 1.5 bars. So either your safety valve will start leaking that we just talked about. If that's broken or non-existent, it'll just pressurize the system. So all your shower connectors, your taps, all your joints are now suddenly under 50% more pressure than they would normally be at. And this is in the middle of the night when you're all asleep. 50% extra pressure. It could easily blow a fitting off a pipe if it's not done properly. You just mentioned your solder joint. That's that you found that would happen as well. So it will also drastically reduce the lifespan of your water tank. It's not designed to take that kind of pressure if the valve doesn't work. If the valve does work, it will just leak out the valve. If you want to rely on that, that's fine. But I've just already said mine has broken from that very thing.
Yeah.
It also smooths out the water delivery. It maintains a more constant pressure in the system as well. So for the sake of the money, we'll speak to Graham, but you don't have to put it right next to the tank either. It can be somewhere else. So right. If it's because there's a space problem, you can put it somewhere else.
Yeah, I understand. Just so it's got somewhere to expand. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Inside that expansion vessel, let's say a third of it is water, the rest is pressurized air. So when it expands, it just compresses the air. That stops any problems in the system, especially with old systems. That's what you want to do.
So what else would someone need to be thinking about when they're coming back to their house that's been unoccupied for maybe 3 months?
Look for things that have made a nest, for sure.
Yeah.
I've found, I'm not talking mice or rats. If you've got those, that's a different problem altogether. But certainly birds, they make nests everywhere around this time of year. They're just all over my house, in and out of the roof and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And if they've got in, you need to clear it out now before they start laying eggs. In fact, you
One other thing as well is to look for something called friss, which I'm sure you know is the sawdust that woodworm eject from the holes.
Yep.
So that's a telltale sign that you've got live woodworm in there, and a lot of houses in France. Probably the further south you go, you've also got the potential for termites as well. So friss is like very, very fine sawdust, isn't it?
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that's an ideal time because it's been unoccupied for so long. You'll see it. You literally it'd be like mountains of this high of sawdust. Yeah, that's a good one. Now, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, in the previous house, because it was a converted barn, a lot of the wood in there was maybe, God knows, 200-300 years old. And we came back one day, we came back after a period of time. It was unoccupied, and one of the beams above one of the small windows in the kitchen, there was these little mounds of sawdust. And so I treated it, and then I think about 3 months later, we went away, then we came back about 3 months later. There was woodworm in the door frame to the utility room. So it had spread from there to there. So I just went mad with the treatment and got on top of it. But it's a real thing that you've got to be aware of.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we should do an episode on stuff like that because a lot of people do find woodworm. It's everywhere in most old French buildings. So I think we should look at doing something like that. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think you're right with that one. As far as electrics go, there isn't really much to check. But another thing, well, you'll find with electrics, as soon as you turn it on, most electrics, if there's a fault, then it will trip. And then it's a question of isolating which circuit breaker it's on to find out where the problem is, and then either correct it yourself or get someone else. But that's just too broad a topic, really.
Yeah.
But
I remember New Year's Eve, right? We was in the house in
best time to have a problem. That
up in Normandy, and New Year's Eve, it was about 10 o'clock in the evening, so like 2 hours till 0 hour, and we're sitting there watching telly, and all of a sudden black, nothing, all the power gone off, everything.
oh.
So always prepared. When I got me torch. Not exactly where my torch was. Actually, that's something that people need to be thinking of. Always have at least 3 torches, because you can bet your life. You've got one, the batteries will go. If you've got 2, you won't be able to find them. Always have 3 torches and
Nice.
check them regularly. Anyway, so when I got my torch, I'm checking the switchboard. They're all okay. Everything was switched on. I thought, oh no, this is like a power cut for the area. So our nearest neighbour was about half a mile down the road. So I thought, I'll jump in the car and go down and see if their lights are on. So jumped in the car, drove down the road. I was having a party with flashing blue lights, and I was having a party in there. They got the disco lights going and all that. I thought, well, they're all right. So I went back and I'm scratching my head. And then we hadn't had the house. We hadn't had the house for long. And something occurred to me that when the guy came to read the meter, that was outside the house, slightly down the lane a bit. Well, actually, it wasn't down the lane. It was directly opposite the house, but probably 30 feet away from the house.
Yep.
So I went across to that little board. It's like a little white plastic unit in there with a door, and I opened that, and sure enough, the switch was down. So I put it back on, and all the lights go on.
Yeah, right. Now that's interesting, because there is a rule now that switch that you're talking about, which is the main interrupter, the main switch from underneath the meter, now has to be inside. You can't have that. You can't have it down the lane. It's got to be inside.
Right.
But it's not retrospective, so there are still properties like that.
Yeah.
But now you've got to put it inside for that particular reason, I guess. And quite often that happens on 3-phase installations, because one of the phases. So let's say you have a 12 kilowatt supply from EDF or whoever. Then you have 3 4-kilowatt phases. So you have 3 lives, and you can only have 4 on each.
Yeah.
3 4s are 12. And then you put a microwave and an oven on one of those, it'll trip that main switch, and that might be down the lane.
Yeah.
So in the evening, when it's dark in winter, you could trip that switch down the lane. You've not done anything wrong per se, but that would just happen, and then you'd have to go down the lane and sort it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a definite problem.
So when you buy a house, in my experience, when you buy a house and you open an account with the electrical provider, they ask you what you've got, basically. Washing machines, fridges, all of those things. Then they swimming pool, this and that, and then they tell you how much power they think you need.
Yep.
And if over time you buy more stuff and it's all switched on at the same time, it can trip it out, can't it?
Yeah, exactly right, and it's pretty simple like that. But there's a big difference between 3-phase and 1-phase.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can easily go over your limit on a
Mm.
3-phase, much easier in the single phase. In fact, I'm going to plug this as well. I'm doing a video on electricity suppliers and how to reduce your electric bill. It's only 3 months in the making at the moment, but
Well, that's not bad, is
it'll
it?
be out there soon.
18 months' time, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, when all the prices have gone up anyway. Yeah. Getting back to the original topic, obviously. The other thing I would say, plumbing wise, I think the main things are plumbing. Yeah, you're right. Creatures, birds, sometimes even what they call twins, polecat, not polecats. What do we call them?
Pine mines,
Pine martins. That's it. If you
they're
got
really
them,
destructive indoors, aren't
oh my God.
they?
When I was doing my brother's bathroom, I think it was bathroom or no, central heating, we went into the loft and we pulled back the insulation, and there was just somebody had put a trap up there for one of them, and it's like a big weight, like this, about a kilo more or more, with a chain on it, and then like a mini bear trap,
Jeez.
and it caught this thing, and it had died, and then there was just a skeleton there, and there was
Nice.
all loads of little baby skeletons next to it. It was awful, but they get into everywhere now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure about the morality of trapping them like that. I wouldn't do it, but this house was last renovated in the 90s or late 80s, and it was from then, which is why they were pure skeletons. There was nothing on them at all. They were literally skeletons. But they do get in and under the insulation in the loft. So maybe that's a good idea to have a check upstairs in the loft if you can get there.
Yeah.
Make sure nothing's living up there.
Yeah.
And if there is, get it sorted quickly.
I remember coming back to the house, as I say, up in Normandy. That's the experience that I've got of having a holiday home is only up there. But coming back and finding there must have been 20 or 30 bumblebees
Oh yeah.
inside by the front door. So they must have got in and then forgot how to get out.
Yeah.
20, 30 bumblebees.
Aye.
Just amazing.
Well, fortunately, if you've come back and you find you've got bees, then you're in luck, because most French communes will have, if you ring up their Frelon guy who gets rid of Asiatic Frelons, they will usually, if they don't do it themselves, they know a beekeeper who will just come and take the whole thing and keep them alive, which is, everybody wants that.
That's really important. Really important.
Yeah, so they do that. And speaking of which, if you come back and you find you've got a Frelon nest, which is hornets, by the way, for anyone from who doesn't know what a Frelon is, they are, and if you've got a nest of those, they are so dangerous for elderly people, kids, dogs, anything. The yellow ones, the native ones, aren't particularly aggressive unless you disturb their nest, but the Asian ones, and they're about, and I've noticed 1 or 2 queens already that we've captured this year. So they're around. They are they are lethal. 4 of those can take a horse down. So
really,
yeah.
if only someone had done a video that showed how to set trap, or even 2 videos actually.
Yeah. I think you'll find it's 3 now, actually. So yeah, if you want to know,
check out these videos on how to make the mix up, and an easy way to make a Frelon trap, a hornet trap. I think for the cost of one that you buy in the shops, you made 6 or 7, didn't you, or more?
Yeah. And now is the time. What happens is the queens that have been buried underground or in the earth come to life, and they go searching for rotten fruit from the winter. They feed off that, and then they go and search for a place to make a nest. And the idea is with the traps we've got, we just capture the queen so that it's not all the frelons all the time, and it doesn't capture wasps or bees, which is brilliant. It's literally just the queens. If you eliminate those, then you're not likely to have them. Check out. We'll try and put a link in the description, I think.
Yeah, I will do. I'll put a link in to those videos.
So that's main things to look at. Oh, one last thing, I think, plumbing wise, before you use your toilet, make sure it flushes, like as in the water goes down, because a lot of people have got septic tanks, and if you leave it for a long period of time, it becomes difficult. How to say this delicately?
That's solid.
It becomes unusable because there's a permanent crust on the top, which won't allow it to flow to the next chamber. Also, if you have a grease trap outside, which you haven't used for a while, take the lid off and clear it out, because that will stop. That'll have dried out and it'll become solid and you can't get anything down it. So check grease traps, check your septic tank is working before you actually use it for the first time. But what if you've got a swimming pool? You've got a swimming pool, haven't you?
I've got a swimming pool, yeah.
Yeah. It's lovely. It's lovely swimming pool.
So that's I don't really know how people with a holiday home run their swimming pool, because a swimming pool, when it's up and running, needs quite a fair bit of daily and weekly maintenance, really. So I would guess someone with a holiday home that's got a swimming pool would have to have a chap come round once a week to clean it and check the levels and so on in the summer. But obviously it's shut down for the winter. To open a pool depends a lot on the filtration system that you've got. So there's two types of filtration systems with swimming pools. There's a chlorine-based system and there's a sand filter system which uses salt water. So you've got a chlorine system and you've got a salt water system.
Right.
So with the chlorine system, you're just putting chlorine directly into the water, and the water's just being filtered.
Right.
Whereas with a saltwater system, you've got the sand filter which filters the water, but you've also got an electric catalyst. So you put loads of salt into the water. Our pool, I think it was about 7 or 8 bags of salt went in there, 7 or 8 25 kilo bags. So, which sounds a lot, but when you got 76,000 litres of water,
wow,
you can just about taste it, just about. But anyway, so what happens is the salt water flows through the catalyst where there's 2 metal plates, and then electric current is passed through the 2 plates from one to the other, and that catalyst breaks down the sodium chloride, and part of sodium chloride is obviously chlorine. So it puts that chlorine into the water, which then flows through and comes back again, and it does it over and over and over again.
So to open the pool then, what so we'll get to shutting it down in a second, I guess, but so everything's shut down. You don't run the pump in the winter at all, do you?
No, you put
so
something.
Go on.
Yeah, so you put something called hibernage in. Hiver is I'm not sure.
Winter.
That's Hiver. Is Hiver?
Is HIV is winter.
Yeah, so hibernage, which is basically like a bleach, really. So you put that in. For the pool here, it's about 12 litres of that goes in. And that just stops the water from going green, stops algae from growing. And we've got a security cover as well that goes over the pool to stop all stuff getting in. But to open the pool up, we'll take the security cover off, and it will be dirty in there. But, where you've got dust and dirt in the air, just gets into the pool. So it will need cleaning. But I will set up all the filtration system, because obviously I've taken all the water out of the filtration system, because in the winter there's the potential for it freezing and damaging the pumps and the heating system, which is an air source heat pump, isn't it? Yeah. So I'll get all the air out of that and get that up and running. And then I'll shock the water, which is where you put a load of chlorine in. And that starts to get rid of some of the algae that's grown on the sides of the pool. There's not a lot normally, and it needs a good actual physical scrubbing. And over time, it will work. Normally takes about 2 weeks to get it just right.
That's quite a long time, actually. I didn't think it'd take that long, but what do I know? I don't know.
It takes about 2 weeks to get it perfect. It's usable within 3 or 4 days.
And then you've got to carry on with the ongoing maintenance after that as well.
Yeah, so the heat pump raises the temperature of the water about 1 degree a day. So if it's quite sunny and warm, then obviously that's, you get maybe 1.5 degrees or whatever. But the ongoing maintenance is, you need to do. I always remember someone talking about first world problems.
Oh yeah.
And I think the best first world problem I've heard is I really can't get the pH right in my swimming pool.
Yeah. Oh dear. What's the world coming to?
So the pH reading is the indicator of the health of your water. So if you get your pH right, everything falls into place. So you can buy adjustments for the water. So it's a pH plus and a pH minus. So if it's slightly high, you put a bit of pH less. When it's slightly low, just put a little bit of pH plus in there.
Okay, so that takes a couple of weeks to get, and I suppose heating it up as well. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I see what you mean. Like people with holiday homes, if you come over for 2 weeks, then that's your 2 weeks. Yeah, and then you obviously need someone to come and do it beforehand, don't you? Unless you're staying here for a long period of time.
You would do. I mean, there's fellas with businesses here. That's all they do. They just do pools.
So that what another thing I would think is a good idea as well is you mentioned in one of your videos, and it's now a legal requirement, is getting the chimney swept.
Yeah. I guess if you come over before it starts getting warm, you may well use your log burner. And what you said about birds,
check the
bad idea just to, if you can at all, stick your head up there. But if you can't, obviously, then maybe have it swept before you use it, because you don't want a bird's nest up there when you've.
Funnily enough, I've actually done a video where I did find a bird in the chimney, and I spent the afternoon getting it released, and I videoed the whole thing. So have a look through my videos, and you'll find one about that.
There you go.
So yeah, it does happen. Yeah, birds nest in the chimney all the time. It tends to be the little ones that fall down.
Yeah.
They're not completely 100% yet, and they fall down the chimney right to the bottom. So yeah. Get the chimney looked at, get the chimney swept is really good. Can you think of anything else you do at the start of the season? Maybe service your lawnmower, I suppose, if it's been sat all week, all week winter. I meant.
Yeah. I would imagine though that most people with a holiday would we'll have a chap to come and cut the grass. Otherwise, you'd spend the first 4 days of your 2 weeks cutting the grass, and because everything grows so fast here. It's the earth's so fertile here, and you get a bit of rain and warm sun, and everything just grows like mad.
Yeah, definitely. I've just helped a couple out that have a holiday home near me, and they rang me up and said, "Look, I know it's been raining and it's now started being sunny. Can you get down there and do a cut for us? Just help us out because the grass is so long. Our normal ride-on mower won't cut it, literally." Yeah. So I went down there with the mini tractor and cut it down to a reasonable level that they can carry on then. But this year's been unseasonably wet. I've never known anything like it.
No, someone said to me they've been here 17 years and they've never had a season like it.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I guess that would be what to do at the beginning of the season. What would you reckon for the pool at the end of the season? What do you do to your swimming pool at the end?
Yeah, so you need to winterize it. So I said about the hivernage that you put in. That keeps the water from freezing. On one of my videos, you'll see me actually shutting the pool down, and there's these plastic floats that you put in the water. So should it get that cold that the hivernage can't stop the water from freezing, obviously when you freeze water it expands quite substantially, and these floating plastic strips, if you like, where the water expands and freezes, it pushes in on these plastic floats rather than pushing against the walls of the pool.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. So that it doesn't do any physical damage to the pool itself.
Yeah, it will just crush these plastic floats rather than the pool wall. Right. And obviously, the other thing that's most important is to empty out all the pipes of water. That's an opportunity to change the sand in the sand filter. The sand normally is changing every 3 or 4, maybe 5 years.
Right, as long as that.
Yeah, because it's sand. It doesn't wear out, but it's
right.
It doesn't wear out. It just gets it can get really really gunked up. So just it's an easy job, but it just takes a while, just because you have to scoop it out and then clean all inside and then scoop it out again. And
you don't. So I suppose you don't want any water left in the pumps, the filters, the pipes, anything, because if that freezes, then do some serious damage.
You can do, yeah. Especially the heat pump. I mean, the heat pump was big money. I think we paid €3,500 for that heat pump. So
yeah, that's quite interesting. Frozen water can cause a problem. Now, I actually did a video on my other house down south. Is unheated and has water pipes, but it's inside. There's no external piping, and I actually put a temperature monitor in and then looked at the results when it was -8 outside, what it was right next to the metal stop tap. So, and I monitored that over a period of time, and it never actually got below 5 degrees centigrade, even though it was -8 outside, and there's no one there. It's a building site basically. But having said that, it's a terrace between 2 other houses,
right?
And it's built, and it's built into the side of a hill, so the retained heat there is going to be quite a lot even over the winter. But the freezing can be a problem. So what I'd normally do is drain the system off. So turn off the mains cold into the house, turn that off at source, and then turn on your taps until the lowest tap in the house, no water comes out of it, both hot and cold. And as long as you do that, there's virtually no chance of anything freezing.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. The water inside your cistern is covered by insulation, and that has got will have a little bit of air in there, so it can actually expand if it does freeze, but it's incredibly unlikely, especially in France. So I would certainly drain all the taps off, especially if you've got an outside tap. That's more likely where it's going to freeze. Any exposed metal outside, insulate it and then drain it off before you leave. Definitely.
Yeah.
Anything else you think of at the end of the season as well? You've done the swimming pool.
So the crime rate in rural France is relatively low, isn't it?
Pretty low, yeah.
So obviously just lock everything up. If you've got shutters, most houses have got shutters, just keep your shutters up. For your letterbox, you can get a little sticker or you can write something. I can't remember what I've seen it, but you can ask for no junk mail.
Right, yeah. So that's pas de publicité.
That's it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So if you've got that on your mailbox, they won't stuff it full of magazines and stuff. That's a really good tip, actually. I never thought about that one. Yeah, that's really good. And shutters as well, if you've got them, if you close those, then it not only makes it more secure, but it protects from storms or.
What you can also do is go to your Marie's office and give them a contact number for yourself.
Yeah.
So should the house get struck by lightning or some natural disaster, they've got a contact. Not that you can do much, but they've got a contact number for you. Yeah,
there's nothing worse than something happening. You come back and you've got a smashed window or something, and you just nobody there to tell you about it. So obviously, mate, that's a good one. And if anyone does keep an eye on the property for you, give them a contact number. Yeah, absolutely right.
Although they do say that you can't do anything in France without being seen.
No, I think so.
Always. So at the house up in Normandy, directly opposite was a derelict property. So when we first moved in, I thought I'm going to go and have a look, see what this is all about, see if it's worth buying. And and it hadn't been lived in for like 20 odd years, so it was all overgrown and that. And this is out in the middle of nowhere, really. Yeah. So I went through the undergrowth like David Bellamy there, grappled me great nuts through the undergrowth. Had a look at this house, and it was really fun. There is a bit of a story about that, but we'll save that one. And went back indoors. Next day, right, there was a bit of string that went all the way around the border of the property.
Yeah.
So someone had seen me go in there.
A week later, the next day.
So someone had seen me go in there, and this is out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, they're quite. I'm not going to say nosy, but they definitely know what's going on, don't they? They know what's going on in the backyard. Another thing I just thought of actually is all your small engined equipment. So like if you've got chainsaw, petrol driven strimmer, brush cutter, or you've got a ride-on lawnmower, normal lawnmower, my best advice for that is remove as much petrol as you can from the tank and run it until it runs out of petrol. And then turn it off, because petrol in France, if you get the 95, in fact the 98 in some places now has got it as well, the 95 has got ethanol in, and ethanol absorbs moisture from the air and turns to gunk inside the carburetor. Now that will stop the float from moving or block passages, and you're going to have to take your whatever it is you've got to go and get someone to clean the carburetor, which can be quite expensive. But just simply by running the tool out of petrol or the generator or whatever it may be, and there's no fuel left sat in it, 99% chance, if it was running when you put it away, it'll run when you get it out. You won't need to worry about it. So yeah, that's a
good check. That good check.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess. Can you think of anything else you want to add to that? As
No.
we covered quite a lot.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Good job. Good job. All right.
Yeah. Right. Just a quick. If you've made it this far, as always, well done. Yeah, that's good. It's good to know people are still watching. And if you want us to discuss anything or start discussing something and go off on a particular tangent, then just let us know. We can do that for you if there's anything particular. We'll do our best to research it first, but as always, with this, what we discuss is our own opinions and our own experiences. If things aren't 100% legally accurate, then it's up to you to go and have a look at what you need to do and the actual legalities around it, because things change. And especially in the modern world with Brexit and new laws coming in and out all the time, then please check first before you act, and don't take our advice as 100% accurate unless you've verified it for yourself. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
It's a bit like don't drink detergent or bleach because it won't do you any good. They have to put it on the bowl. So that's it.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais was saying that what I should do is take those little warnings off of the bleach bottles, and for 2 years, then they can have a referendum.
Oh God. Yeah, he lives life on the edge, that man, doesn't he? But I imagine he's not really that bothered. He's probably rich enough.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's probably about an hour-ish, nearly now.
Yep.
Well, in that case, we'll see you on the next one. So it's just goodbye from me and
Bye from him. Goodbye.